Anita Peters is an accountant who resides in Toronto, Ontario. On January 14, 2021, the province-wide stay-at-home order came into effect. The government says that under this order, you should not leave your home unless it is for essential purposes. Because Peters has an essential job, she headed to her work that morning in Mississauga, Ontario.
It's just a regular route to work every day. I was driving to work, and I usually get in a bit after 9, and I think it was about 9:15 by the time I was there. I didn't see any other police presence or cars or anything, but that's on Highway 27, and there's a bridge under the bridge as soon as you exit to Eglinton. And there were actually 2 police cars there and 2 other passengers or regular people, I guess, and I just got flagged over.
After they pulled over Peters, Toronto police officers asked her where she was going, and they said they were pulling people over to conduct a spot check. The officer was not wearing a mask though, so Peters politely asked him to step back. After she told him that she was on her way to work, they let her go and she continued driving. The incident stuck with her though, and on her way home, she was cautious of officers.
Actually, when I passed the area, I kind of drove slower. And I looked around, yeah.
Then, after she got home, she learned from watching the news that police officers said they were not allowed to check to see if drivers were on the road for essential reasons. That evening, Toronto Police Service published a news release at 5:15 p.m., 17 hours after the new stay-at-home order became enacted. The news release outlines the Toronto Police Service's policy on how they will enforce the stay-at-home order. They said that most of their enforcement will focus on large gatherings at homes and long lines at big box stores. They say that, quote, no element of any order provides the police with either the power to enter dwellings nor the authority to stop a vehicle for the singular purpose of checking compliance with a stay-at-home order, end quote. Peters was pulled over at Highway 27 and Eglinton, which is enforced by the 23 Division. We reached out to them via email, and they redirected us to corporate communications. There, they said that they waited for guidelines from Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police and the Solicitor General's office before starting enforcement. In the email, they said that officers would not be conducting spot checks to see if people were out for essential purposes. They said they could not comment specifically on Peters' case without a name, age, and plate number. But according to Peters,
no, he didn't ask for anything.
We then turned to the Ontario government website for answers, but what we found was a statement that seemed to be at odds with the one that the Toronto Police published. The Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act states that, quote, a police officer or other provincial offences officers who has reasonable and probable grounds to believe that an individual has committed an offence under Section 7.0.11 of the Act may require the individual to provide the officer with the individual's correct name, date of birth, and address.
Seems to be a little bit contradictory.
That's A.V. Levy. He's a lawyer and founder of Ticket 911. Levy is based out of Quebec, but he works with clients in Ontario as well. According to a Toronto Star article, a spokesperson from the Ontario Association for Chiefs of Police said that they did not receive instructions on how to enforce the stay-at-home order even the day before it was to come into effect, and that they wouldn't issue guidelines until they were told how to by the province. It was later stated that those guidelines were given in a memo that was not made public. When we contacted the province on their instructions, we were told to ask the OACP who we contacted, but we never heard back from them. After the 14th, both organizations echoed the Toronto Police policy in statements to the media. Did Toronto police officers receive unclear orders, or did the orders change later on in the day?
Sounds like on the spot that might have been an excuse that was used. And then after the fact, when you sort of did your homework and you called them for a comment, the official answer was, no, it wasn't a spot check. Mm-hmm. So the reality is, as you just mentioned, they should not be doing spot checks of that type for COVID.
On the 14th, 911 operators reported a flood of calls from people asking whether they would need proof of essential travel like they do in Quebec. Media outlets also reported calls asking about more clarity regarding enforcement.
And I think that's the problem here. These are new rules, new regulations, new situations. They're just putting out the rules there, and there is no real precedent or jurisprudence or cases that have been heard before where a police officer could say, can I do this? Can I not do that? And they sort of have to scratch their head and figure it out sort of on the spot, which is why there's going to be, I think, a learning curve, and which is why some of the cases are going to go to court.
I mean, they should not be pulling people over just like that. No. Mm-mm. And you're right, the words are confusing. Yeah, because you're hearing wanting today, and then the next day you're hearing something else. Yeah, I'm always keeping an eye out to see, because they could still stop you despite I mean, they're not supposed to, but they could stop you for anything.
Since then, the province-wide stay-at-home order has been lifted everywhere except for Toronto, Peel Region, and North Bay. Now, this has also caused confusion across Ontario. So, to be safe, Peters remains cautious when she leaves her home. Reporting for Say News, I'm Kristy Kilburn.